to all the dispossessed youth of Africa, for perpetuation of communion with ancestral spirits through the fight for African freedom, and in the firm faith that the dead, the living, and the unborn will unite to build the destroyed shrines. Selah. Hello and welcome, beloveds, to another episode of Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways and that you're moving into living life truly on your own terms, family, because that is exactly what is required of us. And what that means is in your own narrative, or in the narrative, the true narrative of our people. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions about the ancestral wars video that I did recently, where people were asking, people really resonated basically with the confusion that they feel is in their lives and obstacles being created by literally their own, deceased family members. And so a lot of you asked me, how do we cut cords? And just a quick, you've probably already watched that video. I highly recommend you do. But there is a war of the ancestors currently going on between the ancient ancestors and the more recent ancestors who died as Christians, who died in the religious psychosis, who died in the Babylon psychosis. And because of their connection and some of the decrees and declarations that they made through their mouth, they have actually cursed any of their descendants who want to leave the Babylon system, who want to leave the matrix, just because of some of the things that they were made to say by the church, or they said subconsciously and they never corrected. And I think it's very important, first of all, that we understand, overstand, and understand what ancestral curses are. Because a lot of the stagnancy you're seeing now is because of these ancestral curses. And the ancestral curses, there's one dimension where it's certain spirits or principalities. I've done a video on this before. Principalities of alcoholism, of barrenness, of broken homes, single mothers, single fathers, all these things. And you'll see that this curse is carried from generation to generation, because of many things, many things. I can even do a follow-up show on that, but but the main ancestral curses we're dealing with, beloveds, are the ones where our ancestors chose the Babylon religion, they chose the Babylon system, and they denounced their own people. They denounced where they came from. These are some of the things that Christianity required. Christianity required some of our grandparents to totally renounce and denounce their ancestors so that they could enter this family of Mzungu Jesus, where they were told that what their ancestors did was wicked, and they said those things with their own mouth. Certain practices were demonized because of the power they had amongst our people. And then our people said that. And then not only did they say that those things were wicked, but they also declared, I'm even shrubbing, they declared and decreed that from now on, their bloodline would be the bloodline of Jesus. They would now be in the family of Jesus. And if any family member was ever to go back to the wicked practices of old, that they be cursed, that they be banished, that they be punished. These are things they said, beloveds, from their mouths. And then many passed on still in this religious psychosis narrative. The religious psychosis had not been exposed on the level that it's been exposed right now. They didn't have access to all the research that we know now, that Mzungu Jesus was fake. They didn't have access to that. They were at the beginning of the spell. We're at the end of the spell. They were at the beginning of the spell where the Mzungu threw something with their freaking wizardry, with their masons, with their lodges, came and built lodges, and then came and built their Catholic churches, their Anglican churches, their Baptist churches on our sacred grounds. Like, it's shocking. One of the most sacred grounds in Kenya has a Catholic shrine, which they call a national shrine. What do you think that does to our people? And the reason I want to say that I'm even going into this detail is because I don't blame our immediate ancestors. I'm named after my grandmother. I've told you guys so many times. And my grandmother was named after her grandmother. And so if I'm in this bloodline of Mumbi, the first mother, the creator, if I'm in this bloodline, then I am affected by what the Mumbi before me said. And she was such a staunch Catholic that she even left 60 acres of her land in her will to the Catholics to build an altar on our family land, beloveds. And there's been chaos and disharmony in her household. None of her children has ever been able to really prosper and grow like that. Or take, because usually we're supposed to grow our family's wealth. We're not supposed to live on it. We're supposed to take it to the next level, and every generation takes it to the next level. But they haven't even been able to establish a strong foundation, and it's because there's two altars on the land. There's the altar of the Mzungu Jesus, and the Catholics are benefiting from that on such a crazy level. And then there's the altar of the ones that came before. And so there's these two voices, these two contradicting voices that are in constant battle. And for us, the Agekoyo, land is absolutely everything. And you see, this is the kind of confusion, beloveds. The reason I share my personal story is because this is the kind of confusion that we're experiencing, where we have now moved into connecting with timelines before the ancestors that got into the religious psychosis. And because of some of the things that they decreed and said with their mouths, they have now become obstacles. Like my grandmother, I loved her. She loved me. She's been my greatest guardian. I've even spoken to her about her on this show. She was my greatest guardian, beloveds. But she left a statement that no one would ever go back to the ancient ways of the Agikoyo, because that was like witchcraft and magic, when the real witchcraft and magic is a religious psychosis. It's crazy. And I went to see this old seer, beloveds. He's almost 136. I'm serious. And he's known as Guka. And he was basically explaining to me about how these ancestral voices are the voices like of things that they declared over us, are the things that follow us around. And when we want to break free from the Babylon system in any way, they now become like the chains on our feet, the chains on our wrists, because the voice is so powerful. And so we have to find a way to shut that voice from our lives, because it brings obstacles, it can bring danger. Some of these ancestors can even come for you for disobeying the new bloodline of Jesus. Because they're just literally on the other side of this table in the spiritual world. And a lot of them are stuck in that spiritual world, and it looks like this physical world, and they're going about their business. Some know they've died, some don't. Some are waiting for heaven, some are fearing hell. But we have so much spiritual ignorance when it comes to this. So these ancestral voices are the ones that create obstacles. And especially for me, doing a show where I'm talking about breaking that religious psychosis, what this elder seer revealed to me is that the greatest voice was not Babylon, was not the shadow banning, was not of YouTube, was not other people's whatever, good, bad opinion, whatever it is. It had nothing to do with that. They were not in my reality. What was affecting my own personal journey was the fact that now I had tapped into the ancient ancestors, the ancient ones, the Mobis before her. But she had declared that if anyone ever did that, They should literally be banished to hell. So she now became my greatest guardian and support, became my greatest obstacle. And so I had to cut that cord with love. Because it's just out of ignorance, it's out of the time. And what this guy said, sorry if I'm all over the place with this message, what the great seer said is that if she had been alive, we could have reasoned together. I think I mentioned this in the previous show. And I could have explained to her about the religious psychosis and how the Mzungu used religion as a military weapon. And she could have gone back to the river, Oshokarorere, as we say, gone back to her people and canceled that curse before she died. But because she died before she had, corrected that, and my grandfather, the same thing. He had said, if anyone goes to a Agikoyo seer or an Agikoyo medicine man, may the worst fate fall on them or whatever. I mean, he was so gone, he didn't even have a Kikuyu name, beloveds. And no shade to him. But you see, even he had said before he died, and they should be cursed and their inheritance should be cursed and everything. And so because they didn't correct that, that voice is still echoing till today, just like the voice of our ancient ones when they chanted to the Most High, when they faced, Mount Zion and they said, "Dai, Dai, Gai, Dai," and thanked the Most High for the perpetuation of our nation. Their voice still speaks till today. Gosh, I just got emotional. Because our prayer is so powerful. Maybe I'll actually do a show of our prayer, which is something I've started doing regularly. So it's really having a massive effect on my life. But their voices for our prosperity, for our growth, for our dominion, for our expansion also speaks. But we can't have these two contradicting voices trying to speak into our lives. And that's why we're seeing all this confusion. So what do we do? Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Africa.
Welcome back, family, to Ask Dr. Mumbi. My name is Dr. Mumbi Seraki. I've gotten so many questions after the video on ancestral wars, asking how do we cut cords with our ignorant ancestors? And I think there's so many different, you really have to go deeper on that one, because those voices, because current family are using those voices to attack me, I had to go to the extreme of visiting a great medicine man, seer, prophet, whatever you want to call it, and having him cut those cords for me. But in case you don't have access to that, you can do some cord cutting rituals, beloveds. And it's to recognize that it's not that you hate them. It's not that, of course, we don't want to work with any ancestors that are working against us. But we're speaking against their voice that is still impacting our lives. And we want to disconnect ourselves from those voices so that their curses stop raining down on us and following us wherever we go. And instead now we'll move into the pure blessings and mighty words that were said by the ancient ones over our lives to this generation, because they saw this coming. They knew this time would come, which is why I believe many are hidden. Many didn't go anywhere, but they just moved their civilization, some say to inner earth, maybe within mountains. If you know, you know. So beloveds, there's a cord cutting ritual that you have to do. For me, what I did is the picture I had of my grandmother and my grandfather, I literally wrapped them in a white cloth, thanking them just for being with me, because before I tapped in to my ancient ancestors, and my cosmic ancestors, they were all I had, and they stood by my side and they did the best they could to try and guide and protect me. So giving thanks for that. And then you just have to declare it. Some of you don't have the opportunity of a seer or someone like that. What I would recommend is you either try it individually. There are many powerful ways to cut those cords. Of course, removing their pictures from your altar is the first thing. And beloveds, it's funny because I've replaced their pictures with statues, with, these African candle holders of male and female, which I just saw randomly, when I was out and about, being made by some craftsman. And they now symbolically represent my ancient ancestors. And the funny thing is, all of these kind of statues and things that I've gotten, I mean, statue is but all of these symbols of my ancestors, it's always a man and a woman. There's perfect balance in every single one of them. And that was a balance that wasn't there with my immediate ancestors. They're the ones that moved into polygamy and then were forced to say polygamy was wicked, so they literally cursed themselves because someone like my grandfather had 3 wives. So you have to do some kind of cord cutting ritual, beloveds. And it depends on what element. You can either run a spiritual bath and speak into that spiritual bath and talk of a cord cutting, disconnect yourself from all ancestors and the voices that spoke, that were in the religious psychosis. Allow spirit to lead you. You can also do where you write it out as a declaration, like I disconnect, and then you put your Mumbi Seraki, and if you know your title in the spiritual realm, Queen Mother or whatever, you can put that there. Or if you've been revealed your secret name or your spiritual name, you can put that there. And then you literally write, I disconnect from this family member, or if you don't know them, all family members that were connected to this, and I choose to reconnect. You first do actually a letter on disconnecting, and then something separate on reconnecting. And then you can burn that in your bowl, as a letter to spirit, knowing that it has now been acknowledged by spirit and you've disconnected that link. But if you encounter some immediate ancestors that are a bit more stubborn, that don't really want to leave your life because they've been getting energy from you, they've kind of been living this higher, this good spiritual life from you, you may need to call a friend of 2 of like mind, beloveds. And remember, where 2 or more are gathered, the Most High is in your presence. The Great Spirit, the ancestors are with you. They're with you when you're alone, but when you remember, one voice can equal 1 person. When you put 2 together, it's 10. When you put 3 together, it's 100. When you put 4 people together, it's 1,000. So this is something you could either do within your family and allow spirit to guide you, beloveds, on how you should do it, what kind of ceremony. And I say that because it's really time that we start listening more for the practical things that we need to do. We need to start listening more to our spiritual team, because every person's scenario is different. You see, I was led to the great seer. And I mean, I could have, I got in and there were so many other steps, but my ancient ancestors and my immediate ancestors made me realize that I was there for just that cord cutting ritual. And it was deep, beloveds. It was heavy. It has changed my life. And guess when I did it? 22nd to 2022. I guess if you've seen the ancestral video, you know. I was led to that seer. But I'm not going to become his follower or join his movement. But I highly respect him. And it was like I was led for that thing. And I had to listen to know that and know, okay, I'm not supposed to settle all these family karmic debts. Not all of them are my business. Because as I told you, some of us don't even belong to these particular bloodlines. We're guests. But what I had to do was disconnect from the religious psychosis within our family, so that those people who, even the living ones who think I'm doing something wrong by condemning Jesus and I'm wicked or whatever. Even their voice would gain power because of how much reverence I'd given to my grandfather and grandmother. I hope I'm making sense, beloveds. So when I disconnected myself from my grandparents' voice, I disconnected even from the living ones. They have no more power over me. And that's the ritual I had to do for that. I had to go and see a great seer. So you have to now look deep into your own spirit. If you're doing this as a family, discuss and allow spirit to come and kind of give you guys downloads. But it's very important to do some kind of cord cutting. And remember also you cut the cord here because where they connect is here, right? At the belly button, the sacral, which is your life force, which is connected to your past and your future. So you cut the cord here. And I would just do that individually as you do a ceremony. And remember, beloveds, as above, below, as below, so above. So the reason we do a ritual is so that we can pass that message clearly to the spiritual realm. Like, yo, we're not connected to these ones anymore. Not out of hate, but out of love. We're moving on. We don't want to be bound by your voices anymore. Let me know if you have any more questions, beloveds, on this, and I'll definitely try and answer them in the next episode. Tuko pamoja.